Alright, greetings and salutations, folks. Jay here. And due to popular demand, I think one person, I'm going to be doing my Star Wars films ranked. So once again, I'm going to be straying a little bit away from, goth and metal and all that type of stuff. And I'm going to be jumping into another Star Wars. So, but anywho, without further ado, this is my Star Wars films ranked. I'm sure this is going to create a little bit of some controversy and buzz, but anywho, this is my humble opinion, and here goes nothing. So, at the very bottom of the list, I have The Last Jedi. So, if y'all haven't seen, I have done a video on my review of The Last Jedi, and so if you really want to see me dissect the film, take a look at that video. And unfortunately, The Last Jedi has created a ton of buzz right now. People are, fighting and debating and all this stuff. From what it looks like to me, and I know this sounds terrible, but from what I've seen, die-hard Star Wars fans like myself, I mean, I'm not as die-hard as some folks, but I'd say I'm die-hard compared to the average Joe and Jane on the street. But anywho, compared to the average fans, what's it called? I tend to dissect Star Wars a little bit more than that. So anyway, from what I've seen, die-hard fans did not like the film, but average moviegoers enjoyed it. Maybe it's because of expectation contrasts, but from what I've seen, and I know this sounds terrible, I'm not trying to be condescending, but from what I've seen out there, people that enjoyed the film aren't really giving solid points as to why they liked it. I've seen some people give some really solid points. Somebody was discussing how the whole concept of failure, learning from your mistakes, like that, because in reality, when you watch the film, pretty much every plot line and every character, at least from the protagonist's point of view, they all failed. And if you want to look at it, even from the antagonist's point of view, they all failed. Like, Kylo failed to get Rey on his side, Snoke died and failed whatever with pretty much everything there. Rey, in a way, kind of failed to get trained properly by Luke, in a way, but she also failed to get Kylo to turn to her side. Then you have the Resistance failing a lot in combat, and technically speaking, the First Order failed in their final battle and stuff and all that. So, and Luke sees this, great failure and all this stuff, and basically there's a lot of failure. But for me, the little details definitely turned me off from the film. And I'm just going to be brutally honest. The writing was pretty poor in this film. There were a ton of plot holes. There was tons of things that you're just like, hey, you need to explain this stuff. Like, you can have Leia float in space, but bombs can drop. You know what I mean? And somebody said something about electromagnetic whatever. Okay, cool, but you need to address it. In my review, I even started off where I'm just like, hey, the battle tactics in the opening battle were just dumb. You have a dreadnought alone against the Resistance when there's at least a half dozen Resurgence class Star Destroyers behind it. No backup whatsoever. That's just stupid. It's stupid tactics. When you look at all the other movies, there's at least a slight bit of intelligence in their military strategies. That film it was dumb. I mean, they could have used hyperspace to catch up with the Resistance. They could have gone around it, flanked it. It didn't make any sense there. It just was bad. It was poorly written. And for me, I know one of the, besides the military tactics and all the little plot holes in the writing that just didn't make any sense, and all the failed opportunities to make it, in my opinion, really awesome, Yeah, sure, Rian Johnson apparently purposely tried to, everything you expected to happen didn't happen, but it just failed writing wise. Like, it's just not good. Like, it just didn't make any sense. One I just heard today was that apparently Rey took Snoke's ship after Snoke died and whatever to escape the ship. Why didn't she just use the First Order ship to attack on the planet to help them? That way she could have gone in disguised and shot the cannon. She should have shot the cannon. Like, that would have saved the day, but instead she just kind of goes off. It doesn't make any sense. So it just was poor. It was poorly done. As a film, not even just as a Star Wars film. If you take Star Wars out of it, it's not really that good of a film, and I stand by that. And most of all, Luke's story. This has been done over a bunch of times in the Return of the Jedi, and throughout the original trilogy. Luke sees an inkling of good. Well, in the Return of the Jedi, but after he finds out Darth Vader's his father. In the Return of the Jedi, the whole point is that Luke sees that inkling of good in Vader and is willing to sacrifice himself for his father and goes in and, you know, essentially he's at the mercy of not only his father but also the Emperor. So he sees an inkling of evil in his nephew and thinks about killing him / like at least kicking him out of the Jedi Order or whatever. It just, no, it doesn't add up. The Luke that we see would at least try to counsel him and try to talk to him about it and pull him away from it. It was just dumb. It was dumb. So anyway, at the bottom of the list, I have The Last Jedi. Directly above it, and it's actually, this was kind of hard to decide which one I didn't like more, but not, and who knows, maybe I'll change my opinion on it, but the only reason The Force Awakens I see is slightly better is because it directly copied A New Hope, and A New Hope is good. So you have different writing, but bad writing in The Last Jedi, and a copy, but it's a copy of something good. So I don't know which one I dislike more. Like, sometimes I kind of gravitate towards The Last Jedi because at least he tried to write something different. But The Force Awakens is really close to being just as bad because it's a direct copy of A New Hope. Now, mind you folks, those out there, I should have mentioned this. When I look at films and like films in general, I try to look from a writer's perspective because I write books. Now, I'm not, whatever, toot my own horn, but I'm not the frickin' greatest writer in the world, but I at least like to look at how a story's done, at the story itself, at the writing. So that's where a lot of my critical, like my opinions and everything really count. Like, somebody could say the special effects and all this other stuff. I don't really, like, yeah, sure, The Last Jedi had the Admiral Holdo, who they should have explained her story, because apparently in one of the books she was from Alderaan and grew up with Leia, and so that would have put a lot of context to that. Anyway, she flies her ship into Snoke's ship, and yeah, the reason why that is not supposed to work is because ships have shields, so it's kind of, that's supposed to happen? I don't know. Doesn't make sense. But anyway, what's it called? At least the scene itself was pretty cool, but that's not going to make me like and enjoy a movie. Okay, that's not going to stand out for me. I need to see the writing. So The Force Awakens was a direct copy of A New Hope. I've heard some people argue, oh, it's for like the new generation, the new fans. Well, why don't they just watch the original movie? It's not that hard. Just because it's new doesn't mean that it has to be the same as the old. Stupid. No point. All right? I know that film had a lot of expectations because there's tons of books throughout the 90s and the early 2000s for the expanded universe, and a lot of people I knew that were diehard fans were like, hey, the books are written. You can pick and choose what plots you want to use, but at least there's these solid characters. They didn't use any of that, and instead they just rehashed, and it's all this nostalgia. Now, the reason why I really hate The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens, this big thing, is that it's, once again, it's this Hollywood nostalgia. It's the rehash, the plots that are the same. And so when I look at this problem, I don't just look at it from a Star Wars perspective. I look at it from a Hollywood problem. Like they're just regurgitating crap, and that's what's so frustrating about why people are arguing and everything. Like it's frustrating because the common man, they're the ones that are enabling Hollywood to give you crap. Like, if a movie like Independence Day comes out and then fails to make money, the lesson learned. Hollywood has learned that people are not just, you're going to lose money if you dish out crap. So that's why. The standards are getting lower and lower, and people, you gotta up your standards. So, that's my main thing for the, whatever you call it, the TS, like the new movies. Like I said, The Force Awakens, Star Killer base, like, come on now. Alright, they did the Death Star twice, you're really going to do the Star Killer base, and have literally the same thing. Fighters, like X-Wings going in to take it out. Cheesy, alright? And unfortunately for them, the only thing they had going for them is the original characters, like Han Solo and Luke and everything, and Leia. And these new characters, you're forced to like them, and in reality, like, I don't really care that much about them. So, anyway, that's my take on those two movies, and they're at the bottom of the list. Now, directly above that, I shouldn't even say directly above that, but above those it's kind of a tie for the next film. So I guess you could say they're 6. I guess, what would it be? 8? Last Jedi's 8 on my list. And then, what's it called? The Force Awakens is 7. And then tied at 6 is The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. Now, I've seen people be like, oh, these new movies are better than the prequels. At least that. And here's the thing. Once again, it's my opinion. Excuse me. Writing-wise, the stories of the prequels are decent, okay? The actual stories themselves. It's the little details and all that, the little things they add that suck. Whereas The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi suck writing-wise as, like, whole plots. Like, the entire plot of both films sucks. The plot of, like, The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, it's legit. It's just all the things that make it suck. So, like I said, those films kind of go head-to-head. For the longest time, I liked The Phantom Menace more than The Attack of the Clones, but when I've recently watched The Attack of the Clones, I came up with something that technically almost makes me like it a little bit more than The Phantom Menace. And but anyway, I'll go over The Phantom Menace. To start it off with, I was a kid. I was kind of like 12, 13 when I saw The Phantom Menace. So at that age, I was kind of like, oh, so the little things in the film didn't really piss me off as much as they do now, like the droids being stupid, and like the Jar Jar and the Gungans. Like Jar Jar, even as a kid, I didn't like Jar Jar, and everybody knows it. Like Jar Jar was a waste unless he's like this dark side guy that was sneaky and did all that stuff the whole time. That would be awesome. But the pros for the Phantom Menace, definitely the worlds. Like, you get to see Naboo, you get to see the ecosystem. That's pretty awesome. There's a lot of imagination in that. Coruscant, that's probably one of my favorite planets, because maybe it's like I'm a big city guy, but I think it's really awesome the way they depicted everything, and like the Senate and everything. It's pretty awesome. So I like that. Of course, you go to Tatooine with it, and that's kind of whatever, because we've already seen that in the original trilogy. But I definitely want to point out, like, Qui-Gon's character, Liam Neeson, did a great job with him. You kind of see him. People have credited him being like a gray Jedi type of thing. I think he definitely leans more to the Jedi side, but I like how he kind of is like, hey, like, he adapts and overcomes with each situation he does. It was cool following him, and Obi-Wan is like his Padawan and stuff. He did pretty good, Ewan McGregor, but he did a lot better in the, with the other films. But anywho, the original story writing, and now if you take a back seat, and this is kind of, for me, this story arc is what makes me enjoy the prequels, and that's Darth Sidious. All right, Darth Sidious. If you look at those films, thinking about Darth Sidious and like his rise to power, that's what makes the prequels pretty awesome. You have it where he purposely set up the Trade Federation and Naboo, which was his home planet. All right, he set that all up in order to oust Chancellor Valoran, and then he took his seat as Supreme Chancellor. So, and he gets real excited. So, when you look at the Phantom Menace, that's pretty much the plot. Like, at least from his perspective, it's him getting that Supreme Chancellor seat. People knock Jake Lloyd. I mean, it's not really him as a child actor that's to blame, but it's just the writers and the dialogue. Like, sure, there's a lot of cheesy stuff with that, and like Anakin, and he built 3PO and whatever. I don't really care. As a kid, I didn't really mind the pod race, and even now, I'm like, okay, like, it's this little subplot in there, and they need whatever to get the part to fix their ship, and you have the pod race, and all right, you know, that, remember the N64 game for the pod race? That's pretty legit, but it's alright. You know what I mean? It's not horrible, but, you know, it was enjoyable to see the pod race and everything. But more importantly, Darth Maul. You got Darth Maul coming onto the picture. I wish there was more Darth Maul, but one of the biggest things is my favorite lightsaber duel is, well, I'd say my second favorite lightsaber duel is with Darth Maul and Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. And to see, what's his name? Ray Park, I think. I can't remember his name, but to see his skill, and he even was teaching Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor how to duel and everything, and like how to set up the action scene. It was pretty awesome. So that whole thing was cool. But that's kind of how I see the Phantom Menace. As a kid, I liked it a little bit more. As like an adult, I'm kind of like, ugh, like all the cheesy things kind of tick me off. But in the end, when I look at the writing and I look at Sidious, I enjoy that film from start to finish much more than I enjoy the TS or the newer movies or whatnot. Now, Attack of the Clones. If you take out Anakin and Padme and the whole romance thing, and you strictly look at Obi-Wan, it's not that bad of a movie. It really isn't. You have him meeting up with his buddy at the diner and stuff, and some people knock that, but I'm like, okay, it shows that Obi-Wan was more willing to talk to like non-Jedi and like other people to like get information. I thought that was kind of cool, and like how he had relationships with people outside of like the Jedi. I thought that was cool. The Camino story and like him on the planet and everything, I thought that was awesome. Jango Fett and like how all that was, you know, at work, etc. I thought that was really cool. And the action sequences, and then he ends up on Geonosis, and what's it called? Hold on a sec. Let me make sure this is going. Oh, it's still going. What the heck? That's weird. I got 12 minutes. So I'll probably have to break this into two halves, so it's all good.